All right, hello. I think I'm live. Give me a second to refresh YouTube. You know, it always takes a second to catch up with StreamYard for some crazy reason. I think my microphone is on too. I think. All right, can y'all hear me? Is my microphone actually on? Getting better at that. Oh, hi everyone. Hi Catnip, Jess, Rosie, Leanne, Kathleen, Hot Scorpio, Stacy. How are you all doing? Carolyn, hello. Nice to see you again. I hope you're all doing really well. I'm not on camera tonight because I just got a call a couple hours ago about a death in my family, and I had my makeup all done, but obviously it's ruined, and I just didn't have it in me to redo it. So I'm sorry. We're just going to have to deal with the picture for tonight. I'll get there. All right. It's been a day. I'm a little not looking my best, so I'll just go with the picture. I hope that's okay with y'all. We do have a lot of news in the Vallow case to talk about tonight. And something very interesting from this morning. And why is my computer making all these noises? Come on now. Desktop notification from Instagram. I don't need that on my computer. Go away, Instagram. My goodness. Thank you all for your condolences. It's a really long story. I don't want to get into it because I'll just get all teary and stuff. And that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell, and Joseph Ryan. Joseph Ryan. This is kind of a big deal. Now, all right, let's start with the basics. I have a list of topics of things we're going to go over tonight. We're going to talk about the new trial and hearing dates. We're going to talk about the motion to dismiss, change of venue, pretrial conferences, and the beginning of the jury trial. But mainly we're going to talk about Joseph Ryan's case. There's some rumors floating around that are actually incorrect, so I want to make sure we get those correct, but also talk about what's the next step. And Justin Lum has secured an interview with Joseph Ryan's former lawyer back from the custody battle days. So we're going to go through my notes on that interview. I'll give you a link to it so you can go listen to it in its entirety. It was kind of interesting. So I thought we'd go through all of that tonight. Oh, deep breath. You know, I thought about maybe even canceling the live, but I was like, you know what? The show must go on. And I'm here to bring you this information. I didn't want to let it wait till later in the weekend once I've, processed everything that's going on, because there's a rumor floating around on the internet, and we're going to address that. So excuse me for clearing my throat. So let's start with the new trial and hearing dates. As we know, the cases were recently joined. All right. So that means, of course, now the lawyers have to come up with some new stuff and new tactics and everything. I was pretty sure it was going to be delayed, and sure enough, it is delayed. The motion to dismiss and motion for change of venue that were going to be heard on November 24th have now been moved to January 6th of 2021. The motion to dismiss will be at 9 a.m. The motion for change of venue will be at 11 a.m. And these will be before Judge Boyce. I will bring them to you live, so mark that date down. I'll certainly put up reminders and stuff before we get there. So we'll have those two hearings on the 6th of January. So we've got another month and a half to twiddle our thumbs before we hear anything from the courts. There is a pretrial conference with Judge Watkins. Now, that's Lori's judge. Now, this could be for her other charges. Remember, she has the 3 other charges pending against her still. It could be for that. Who knows? Or maybe it's just to discuss transferring it all over to Judge Boyce. That happens on February 25th. And then on June 2nd, we have a pretrial conference with Judge Boyce. And then July 12th, that is when the trial is scheduled to begin. Now, is it probably going to be delayed again? Most likely. When they have the motion for the change of venue, I have a sneaky suspicion that change of venue is going to be granted, and as such, that trial of July 12th will probably get delayed yet again. So we're not going to see Chad and Lori at trial till at least next June, possibly July or even later. But there's a lot going on in the background in the meantime for us to keep talking about. So now you have an idea of when things are going to be happening. But let's talk about Joseph Ryan. Now, about 2 weeks ago now, I think, Annie Cushing, Joseph Ryan's sister, Tylee Ryan's aunt, did a live stream wherein she played some of an audio file that someone sent to her of Lori talking to a group of people. Now, everyone is throwing out their own ideas of when this recording was made, where it was, yada, yada. Nobody knows for sure. That's one thing to bear in mind. I think it was from the weekend when Charles was out of town and Lori and Chad had all the people over to her house in Arizona. Remember, this was the weekend that Lori wrote an email to Chad pretending it was from Charles saying, "You're welcome in our home anytime. I'm glad we had your group there, blah, blah, blah." We know that Lori now wrote that email, not Charles. But that's when I think this was recorded. But I could be wrong. There's nothing definitive in the recording to pinpoint exactly when it was done. So there's that. But this recording is pretty long, 46 minutes long. And Paul and I talked about it the other day. There's a live stream on this channel you can go back and check where we go through the audio and bring up some important points. If you want to hear the whole thing, Annie Cushing has a link to it in the Facebook group, True Crime Underground. There's also, I uploaded the full recording into our Discord server if you want to see that. So you can listen to the whole thing if you want. But basically, it's Lori telling a whole group of people how she wanted to murder her ex-husband. At that point was Joseph Ryan. So she says, "I was going to kill him. I wanted to kill him." Okay. All right, Lori. Well, okay. So when we heard this recording, a lot of people, of course, wanted it to be like, "Oh my God, go arrest her right now." Well, she's already in jail. But that recording is not evidence of anything. Right? It is evidence of her state of mind, or at least how she was talking to people about her state of mind. It could have all been lies. It could be real. We never know with Lori. So the audio itself is not evidence. However, if they do bring charges against her for Joseph's death, certainly this audio can play into things like her state of mind and motive and things like that. So it's a very important recording. All right. So we have the audio file in Discord. You can also go watch Annie Cushing's live. I strongly recommend you sub to her channel. She's wonderful. And she talks about it, through her listening of it. So it's a very interesting piece of audio. As a result of this audio file being released and being sent to authorities, the FBI and Phoenix Police, etc., the Phoenix Police Department, Sergeant Mercedes Fortune, which is quite an interesting name, came out and said that they are going to review Joseph Ryan's case. All right, they're going to take a look at the case. Right now, what this doesn't mean is that they're opening a new investigation. Reviewing the case and opening a new investigation are two different things. So let's get this right. The actual words that we have from law enforcement says we are going to review Joseph Ryan's case. And the way Justin Lum put it, yes, that was a result of hearing this recording. All right, so that's really good. That is fantastic news. However, a lot of people, and I'm not sure where this started, but I'm seeing all over Twitter and YouTube and Facebook and all of these things saying that Lori's been named a person of interest in Joseph Ryan's death. That is absolutely untrue. All right, it's really important to remember that. Person of interest is a very specific legal designation. Just because, you may think about someone and want to question them doesn't automatically make them a person of interest. Right, so law enforcement has not made that designation yet when it comes to Lori or Alex for Joseph's death. So everyone that's saying that, stop saying that, okay? They are not at that point yet. And we do have confirmation of that from Sergeant Mercedes Fortune. She confirms that there are no persons of interest named in the case of Joseph Ryan. There have been conflicting reports, and Justin Lum reached out to her to clarify that. So that's a big deal, okay? Excuse me. I should have muted my mic for that. I'm very sorry. So there's a lot of I've seen a lot of articles flying around, a lot of posts. Yes, True Crime Underground as well. A lot of YouTubers, a lot of people saying Lori's a person of interest in Joseph's death. Even Annie Cushing said that in a tweet. So eek, but it's not actually the case. A person of interest colloquially is different than the actual legal designation. So try to keep that in mind as we're going forward. I certainly hope that Lori becomes a person of interest in this case. I really do. And I think as they look into it, that will probably happen eventually. But right now at this point, she is not legally or technically a person of interest. So just an important distinction. You know, one thing that I like to do, maybe differently from a lot of other people covering this case, is to stick to what law enforcement tells us, not really to go down all of the more conspiratorial rabbit holes. I wanted to stick to the facts so that when it comes to trial, we'll have a really clear idea of what we're dealing with. All right, so understanding that Lori is not technically yet a person of interest from the legal perspective is very important. So what does that mean? What does reviewing the case mean? Not much. Okay, unfortunately, it doesn't mean much. If they review the case and they say, you know what, I think there's enough here for us to reopen the investigation, that's a big deal. That's when we jump up and down and start cheering. You know, so I really hope it comes to that. Certainly, in light of this audio file and the history of Alex assaulted Joseph Ryan with a stun gun and actually went to jail for it. You know, you put all the pieces together, it's like, how can you not reopen the investigation? So my thoughts are with Sergeant Mercedes Fortune. Please, I hope that she does the right thing and will reopen this investigation. And then we'll have some persons of interest. Bipolar Princess just linked the legal view from Lori Hellis. Lori Hellis does a free newsletter all about the legal side of what's going on in this case. You can subscribe to it at that website, at that link, and it will get emailed right to your inbox. So if you want more information on the legal stuff, that's where you need to go. It's a great website. I love it. Hot Scorpio says, I hope they're reviewing phone and email records to see if Lori had any contact before his death. I believe they are. What we heard, certainly in Charles's case, the lead investigator that took over the review of Charles's death said that one thing that they were focusing on was electronic data. So hopefully they will get with anyone else in any of these other states and everyone will pool their resources and say, well, we have a text on this day about some guy named Joe, but we're looking at Charles. So who's Joe? I want them to all communicate and share all the information they have. And I'm pretty sure if they did that, they could put a really big puzzle together. You know, so let's hope that that's happening. It is a big puzzle. The problem is we have multiple jurisdictions. We have different states. So it's going to be very, very complicated. A lot of people keep saying, why don't we have murder charges yet? Well, this is one of the reasons. This is a big case with so many moving parts and so many different characters in it that it's going to take them a very long time to sort it all out and put it all together as one case. Certainly with Rob Wood being named a special prosecutor in Idaho, he has jurisdiction over the Idaho stuff, right? Not just that one county. So that's really good news, all right? But these things are happening. The wheels are turning. They're going to turn really slow, unfortunately, but it's still a pretty good thing. Now, Justin Lum interviewed a man named Keith Taniguchi. Now, Keith Taniguchi was a lawyer for Joseph Ryan back when all of the custody started over Tylee, the custody issues between Lori and Joseph for Tylee. And Justin Lum reached out to him and talked to him about everything that's going on to see what he would have to say. Now, I listened to the whole thing a couple times, and it seems like certainly he had some interesting points. So we're going to go through it, but I think we need to take a lot of it with a grain of salt, okay? Because he's remembering things from a long time ago. He seems a little confused on a few points here and there. He gets things a little backwards, but it's still a very interesting perspective. So I'm going to put a link in chat if anyone wants to watch the full interview. It is very interesting. Let me paste it there for you. There you go. That is a Vimeo link of the full interview with Keith Taniguchi. All right, now, some of the things he talks about. Let's run through it. He talks about how the court case, it started as a criminal case as a result of Tylee's outcry to a therapist about sexual abuse. They investigated Joe, and they really investigated Joe, even to the point of going to his house and seizing his mattress and sheets and testing them. And they found nothing. So, okay, that's interesting, because we hadn't heard that they had done that before. He also said that Joe took a polygraph test, but he does not tell us the results of it. All right, but let's assume he passed it because he was not put in jail. So there's that. She said that Tylee went to counseling and she kept saying the same thing until eventually one day she recanted. But at this time, she was about 4 years old. So, that's a big problem. All right, for a 4-year-old to be making the statement, then suddenly one day she just recants. So the lawyer's perspective seems to be that Lori was coaching her on what to say. And, no, not Tamagotchi, Taniguchi. Yes, I had a Tamagotchi pet when they came out, and I really liked it. That was fun. So the lawyer's saying that pretty much he believes that Lori was coaching Tylee on what to say. So when Tylee was about 4, she recanted her story. All right. Then the lawyer starts talking about Mormonism, and he calls it Mormonism. He said Lori was really big into Mormonism. And he said that he read some books about it because he wanted to know what he was dealing with, and he tried to learn about it and this and that. But he said something that I think it's important that we talk about it, and I don't think it is what he thinks it is. He said that he got a call from the second in charge of the Mormon church who spoke to him on Lori's behalf. All right, so this would be somebody from the office of the presidency of the Mormon church, of the LDS church, calling him to tell him Lori was just swell. All right, do any of you believe that actually happened? Do you think someone from President Nelson's office or anyone else in the office of the presidency would call a lawyer in a custody dispute battle of someone in the church, of a member? I don't think so. I really don't think so. So what could have possibly happened there? Well, she could have had a friend or Alex or somebody call and say that's who they were. That would make more sense to me. I really don't think anyone that high up in the Mormon church would actually stop and make this phone call. All right. Also, given what we know about how the Mormon church responds to legal matters, this would have had to gone through their legal office, certainly way before it got up to the office of the presidency. So, yeah, I don't believe that happened at all. I believe this lawyer thinks it happened, but I believe that Lori had somebody call and just name drop, pretend to be that person to give Lori this glowing review. Okay, so that's what I think happened there. I'm surprised this lawyer hadn't quite worked that out, but I don't think he's following this case as closely as we are. But that's what I assume happened there. Hopefully, we'll get a name. I wish Justin had said what was his name. Why didn't you ask him? I would love to know the name of the person that he thinks called him, because then guess what? We could just ask them, hey, did you call the lawyer and talk about Lori? They'd be like, what? Of course we wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? But like Bethany says, she does have a history of posing as others. Absolutely. And I don't believe for a second that she would put it past her to ask Alex or Chad or whoever was involved in her life at that time. Even maybe her local bishop, maybe Gabe, who knows? But somebody called, said that they were the second in charge of the Mormon church, whoever that would actually be, and gave this lawyer a glowing review. So maybe he would drop the lawsuit against Lori or something. Who knows? But that was kind of interesting that he thought that. Let's see. Moving on. He references all the trouble that Joe had once Lori had moved to Chandler, Arizona. Okay, now we've heard a little bit about this. Certainly, if you've read any of the documents that were released, which I really still don't think they should have been released, but Lori gave Joe a run for his money when it came to custody and visitation. Right? She would block him at every opportunity. He talks about one time there was a concert or something at the school where Joseph went to see Tylee and he wasn't allowed in. Right? So she blocked his access to Tylee every way she could. And he says that there are lots of police reports between Chandler and Austin, where Joseph was living, detailing all of these things. So that might be something to get a hold of. All right, but he says there are lots and lots of police reports detailing how Lori really was throwing the wrench in everything Joe was trying to do. So that was very interesting. He said that Lori was upset. Wait, talking about the lawyer. Okay. Now, we do know of a lawyer that was working with Lori that had passed away. All right. And Lori says that his ghost comes to her and whatever. But I thought he said the name Gerald in this interview, which is a name I haven't heard before. So we have to look into that and see if we can find out who that was. But he said the lawyer was upset because she never paid him and she owed him about $50,000. And he even filed a motion to remove himself from the case, but it was denied. So he had to represent her in court. So this is kind of historical. She seems to have a lot of trouble with lawyers. And I wonder how that's translating over into Mark Means' world. That would be interesting to find out. So we have that. He talks about the Taser attack. He said that Joe was having a supervised visit with Tylee in a location that was predetermined the day before with the supervisor. But on his way out, Alex showed up, confronted him, and hit him with the Taser. As a result, Joe was in the hospital for 3 days as a result of that Taser attack. Alex was arrested. He did go to jail. He pled guilty, all of that stuff. But the twist here is that Lori has always said that she had no idea how Alex knew how he was there. She had no idea. How would Alex know where Joseph was? I don't know. I know nothing. But because the nature of these supervised visits, this lawyer explains that the only people that would have known about it would have been Lori and Joe and the supervisor. And it was only scheduled a day before Joe was attacked. So Lori must have told Alex. So right there, there's conspiracy. Now, did Alex intend to kill Joe or just really scare him? If he intended to kill him, there's conspiracy to commit murder right there. So I don't think it would take law enforcement a real long time to reopen the investigation and actually get some persons of interest on this case, because that happened. Remember, that happened long before Joseph died. He died later of other causes, but it shows a history of Lori working with Alex to try and take out Joseph Ryan. I mean, it's not a big mystery what happened to Joseph. So, and Alex did serve time for it. So the lawyer goes on then to say that at one point, while Joseph was working, he was making a lot of money and he was financing all of this back and forth and visitations and all this stuff. But eventually he lost his job or was unable to work because of it. And he had loaded up all of his stuff and he was actually living with his lawyer for a few months. The lawyer says that he did have a drinking issue and depression, stuff like that. And that was about the summer of 2017. While he was in Arizona, Joseph got 3 DWIs. So his drinking problem was an issue. And after that, Joe went and lived with his lawyer's brother. His lawyer's brother had a garage with an apartment above it, like an in-law apartment. And Joseph went and stayed there for a couple of months. Now the lawyer also says that he packed up and moved to his sister's in New York. But then he had moved back to Arizona. And this is where I think the lawyer's a little confused. As far as we know, Joseph never went to live with Annie Cushing. Do they have another sister? Am I just, misremembering things? But the lawyer is very confused about where he was living after that point. Maybe it was his sister, but he wasn't sure. So, and that was it. But he basically talked about Joseph having years of trouble with Lori and huge expenses, and it seemed like Joseph had a big downhill turn after Lori had moved to Chandler with Tylee and all of this stuff. And certainly after the Taser attack, Joseph kind of just spiraled downhill. And that was when his drinking problem got very bad. The lawyer seemed to at least insinuate that Joseph didn't have a problem before. Then all this stuff happened. Then Joseph developed a drinking problem. So this is all anecdotal, so we can't take any of it as fact, but it's certainly interesting. It's terrible to hear all the stuff that Joseph went through just so he could see his daughter. He tried very hard. Don't let anyone ever tell you that Joseph just gave up on Tylee. He didn't. He wanted to be in her life. He wanted to be her father. He wanted to see her and take care of her. And he was paying so much money, in child support and all of this stuff. And it just drove him to the edge. It really did. Hot Scorpio says, didn't the lawyer also say that Alex was with Lori the night before? He did say that. He did. I don't know if he can back that up. I don't know if he can prove that. I don't know if it's just his memory, whatever. But the lawyer said that Alex was with Lori the night before he attacked Joe outside of the visitation. So, obviously that's how Alex found out about it. Right there, to me, that is conspiracy to commit murder. So, I would assume if they reopen this investigation into Joseph Ryan's death, this lawyer, Keith Taniguchi, is going to be a witness, and hopefully he gets his memory straight. So, he doesn't get tripped up on the stand. But do we know anything about Lori's first two husbands? We know a little bit. The first husband, I have his name. I can't remember off the top of my head. The first husband is still alive from what I've heard. There's not much known about him. His name came to light recently. It's in my timeline. Look at my timeline, or the family tree that I did on the channel. Just search for family tree. His name is in there. The second husband was William LaJoya, and that is Colby Ryan's birth father. He is still alive. He actually is right here in the same county that I am. I have not gone to find him. I think he is in jail here in this county, as far as I know, or at least he lives here. He might be out now. And I've considered maybe trying to find him and see what he has to say. But I think if he wanted to say something, he would. I don't think he really wants to get involved in this. But that is William LaJoya. He's still alive, in and out of trouble, perhaps, as far as I can tell from Google. But William LaJoya is here. The third husband was Joseph Ryan. He is deceased. The fourth husband was Charles Vallow. He is deceased. And the fifth husband is Chad Potato Daybell, who is currently in jail. So, yeah, she's got a track record on her, doesn't she? Lori had 3 sisters. Yep, that's Lori's sisters. Lori probably let Joe think they would reconcile and went over, and that's quite possible. That's possible, Judy. Lori certainly played that game with Charles so she could go get his life insurance in order. She admitted that. Or did Melanie Gibb admit that? One of them did. Yes, husbands 1 and 2 got away. They did. Now, we do know that, Alex did plead guilty to the attack on Joseph Ryan. And this is one of the big things that gets me about this case. We know that Alex, for sure, attacked Joseph with a taser and spent some time in jail and on and on. We know for sure Alex was in the home when Charles was killed. Alex says that he killed Charles. It could have been Lori. We don't know for sure, but Alex at least owned up to that and claimed it. And even after those two, nobody put that together. Rosie, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Every time you put the flowers like that in the leaves, it always makes me smile. It's so cheery. Thank you. I love you. That was great. So nobody put together that 2 of her husbands had been attacked and they both were dead. Now, we don't know how Joseph died for sure. The toxicology report was released earlier this year, and it doesn't look like anything extraordinary. There were a lot of medicines in his system because he was taking a lot of pain meds and muscle relaxers and things like that. Was that contributing to his death? We don't know. So there's nothing has satisfied my curiosity about Joseph's cause of death, although there's nothing overt that says he was murdered. Could it have been some kind of poisoning thing? Absolutely. Of course it could have. And certainly with Lori's audio, the previous attack by Alex, they really should reopen that investigation. So we post the site of the video. Yes, I will get another link. All right, this link right here. This is the full video interview between Justin Lum and Keith Taniguchi. All right. The Malachite thing. Stacy, no. Malachite is poisonous if you powder it up and eat it. Sure, but who does that? Just because she bought a ring with Malachite in it does not mean that they poisoned anyone with Malachite. It really doesn't. People took that and kind of really ran with it. Now, sure, malachite, it can be poisonous if ingested, but it's really not ingested. Like, I have malachite. I have all kinds of crystals and stones and things like that in the house. I love that kind of stuff. And I use malachite. I have polished malachite. It's really pretty, but I don't eat it. Who does? It's not poisonous unless you're like grinding it up and eating it. And for them to have the knowledge and understanding and capacity to have bought enough malachite to have ground it up safely so they didn't hurt themselves, and to be able to use that to poison somebody else's food or drink, no, that's really way out there. Right? I know a lot of people think, oh, it was the malachite. I don't think so. Lori and Chad, in one of Chad's papers that we found somewhere, says that he and Lori were the healers. Their little group was all about healing and music. And we know that they do a lot of new age type stuff, right? Especially with their friendship with Julie Rowe, right? And her twirling rainbow ribbons. She's a new age person. Okay, now nothing against new agey stuff, but their version of new agey stuff is a little cuckoo. All right. But anyone who does new age healing, hands-on healing, stuff like that, knows about malachite. If you study crystals and gemstones for magical purposes, malachite and aventurine are the two healing crystals. Right? Green healing crystals are for healing, or green crystals. Like aventurine is a light green, malachite is a dark stripy green. It's very pretty. So anyone who does work with crystals will have malachite. It's common in that circle. So that's probably why they wanted it in her ring, or why at least Lori wanted it in the ring, because she fancied herself a healer and she liked the new age stuff, clearly. So she got a ring with malachite in it to represent her healing thing. And Zulema was also a healer. Yep. So you have all of these new age healer people and a stone that is very commonly used in new age healing for healing. And, got a ring. That's all. I do not for a second, of course, I will eat my hat or many hats if it's ever proven that they used malachite to poison anyone. I think that's way beyond these people. Yes, okay, malachite is toxic if ingested. Yes, of course it is. A lot of things are. You walk around sniffing a lot of rocks and minerals, and you could probably hurt yourself a lot. But I don't think there's a correlation there. Okay, I think they liked malachite because in New Age circles, malachite is a healing stone. That's all. But it's not a healing stone that you eat. It's a healing stone that you hold, and you pour your energy into the stone, or you lay the stone on parts of the body that need healing. That's all. You don't eat it. It's just like a magic rock. Okay, so yeah, I don't see her doing that. Now, insulin, that's something that's much easier to kill somebody with than malachite. And certainly they had access to it. That doesn't take a whole lot of, thought, really, to use insulin. That's far more plausible and likely to my brain than powdering malachite. What if healing was code talk? Even so, healing could be code talk for them, but still, I do not think that they poisoned anyone with malachite. The family is very familiar with insulin. Remember Stacy Cope, which was Lori's sister, who had all kinds of medical problems, including a very bad case of diabetes. Of course, they're all bad, but she wasn't treating it properly. And Alex was staying with Stacy towards the end of her life. So certainly if there was insulin involved with her and her diabetes, they would have known about it. We don't know how Stacy died for sure either. So, it's just a thing. Insulin is far more plausible with these people. So insulin would not show up on a tox screen because insulin is naturally produced by the body. It's not something that would show up in a toxicology report. All right, so it also is broken down by the body very quickly. So they would have to test like within minutes of death to see what your insulin level is, or at least in that couple hours. So it's not something that you can test for very easily to show that was a cause of death. So I don't know how they would find that out for sure, if they even could, but certainly it would not show up on a tox screen. Hot Scorpio says Alex was spending his sister's money after death. Yeah, Stacy. Yep, Stacy Cope. That's a really tragic story. Stacy Cope is Melanie Pawlowski's mother. And the issues that sprung up between Stacy and Melanie's father, who I believe is Stephen Cope, where he was trying to rescue Melanie from Stacy because he thought Stacy was absolutely crazy. She was so food fanatical, like extremist food stuff, where she wouldn't let Melanie drink milk because milk was poisonous, and just all of these really crazy ideas that she had. So he was trying to get Melanie Pawlowski, at that time Melanie Cope, out of that situation to save his daughter. And for years, Melanie misinterpreted that as he was the bad one, but I think over the course of the last year or so, she's come out and said that she is working on healing the relationship with her dad and was thankful that he did that to save her life. But after Stacy died, Melanie seemed to have replaced her mother with Lori. Melanie looked up to Lori as a mother figure. And certainly in Lori's audio file, when she's talking about moving to Hawaii and how God wants her to move to Hawaii, this is her mission. So this is a big deal because I'd have to leave my baby and her babies. I'm like, well, who the heck is she talking about? Obviously, she doesn't have to leave Tylee. She takes Tylee with her. Who is her baby and her babies? What baby has babies? I think she was talking about Melanie Pawlowski because Lori also thought of her as a daughter. So that's what I think. But the whole group of them have some very strange relationships. Sherry asked, could this be a cult? It could have been a cult if it was bigger. I don't think 4 or 5 people really makes a cult, but their thinking was very cult-like. Certainly Lori could have grown into a cult leader if she had a bigger following. Absolutely. What about the medication that JJ was on, or that Lori would give him? What about that? He was on behavioral medications for his issues. And Lori was withholding that from him towards the end of his life, which must have been horrific for poor JJ. So, all right, a lot of people are talking about different possible causes of death. Let's be careful with that in chat. We don't want to give people ideas. Be a little careful about how we talk about how easy it is to kill someone without being tracked, because we don't want to encourage that. Let's see. Maybe Alex was saving Stacy's insulin and replacing it. Maybe Lori was saving drugs prescribed to her children. It's quite possible. They had a lot of medications around. They had some knowledge of some basic stuff. Who knows? Who knows? We're not going to find out for quite a while. I do think once we get the autopsies back on Tylee and JJ, we will get some toxicology reports. But remember, they were interred for quite a while before any tissue samples were taken. So, the validity of what we find in a tox report may not be completely accurate. But hopefully we'll find out more as time goes on. So, my goodness. But yeah, these people are definitely interesting. So, yeah, listen to the audio file from Lori. Listen to the interview with Keith Taniguchi, and all the pieces start falling into place. So we're getting a very clear picture of what they were all like, what all of these relationships were like. And I would be very surprised if we don't soon see a new investigation into Joseph Ryan's death, if we don't soon see action from the Chandler, Arizona police about Charles's death. If I think all of this is going to kind of come to a head at some point, and Lori's going to face a list of charges a mile long. There are 6 people in her world that are dead. And I think she's somewhat, if not entirely, responsible for every single one of them. Now, the how is something that we really want to know. How did Alex die? They said it was natural causes. I don't believe that. I don't believe any of these deaths were natural causes. Perhaps Joseph, perhaps, right? Because he was taking a lot of medications. He did have a big drinking problem. He did have, didn't they say arterial sclerosis? something was his cause of death, even though he was kind of young for that. But given, some other issues, maybe it was just a natural death. The police department did release the police report from when they found Joseph. And what they said was when they went to the front door, it was locked and they couldn't gain entry because it has one of those locks that only locks from the inside. And that was locked, right? So you can't open it with a key. You have to unlock it from the inside. Okay, so there's that. So they went around, they climbed up onto the balcony, and they had to remove a screen to get into the window of the bedroom upstairs. Okay, so that's important. The screens were intact when they got there. So it doesn't look, at least to them at the surface, it does not appear that somebody was inside, murdered Joseph, and then left the apartment. Because you can't lock a door from the inside once you've left. Now, is it possible they climbed out through the window and then put the screen back in place? Possibly. Possibly. We don't know for sure. But on its surface, it does not appear that someone went in and murdered Joe. But could it have been a longer-term poisoning type thing? Absolutely. So that they've got to look at it a lot more. Hi, Jenny McGee. It's good to see you here. Murphy says, I can't believe Lori would wait so long for Joe to be found if she knew he was dead. She'd want her hands on that money. That's a good point. That is a good point, Murphy. If she killed him for the money, she would probably have wanted that to been, done and dusted quick. However, maybe she was doing a tactical move, figuring somebody will find him sooner or later. That's possible. There's so many things possible. When you have people as crazy as Lori, a lot of things are possible. Oh, Austin Gardner, you've been in the hospital. I hope you're doing okay. A triple bypass. Oh, my goodness. I'm so glad to see you here. I hope you'll be all right in speedy recovery. My goodness, that's a rough procedure. I hope you're feeling better. Are you feeling okay? Yikes. Well, definitely glad to see your pixels typing again. That's for sure. Much better. Good. Very glad to hear that. All right, so let's recap what we talked about at the beginning. The new trial and hearing dates. Remember, we're not going to hear anything now until January 6th, which will have the motion to dismiss and motion for change of venue. Those were scheduled for the 24th of November, but now they're moved to January. So that's kind of a long ways away. We have pretrial conference for Lori on the 25th with Judge Watkins, a June pretrial conference with Judge Boyce, and the jury trial is supposed to begin on July 12th, but don't hold your breath on that. Don't schedule time off from work to watch it. That's probably going to get moved if they get the change of venue approved. So everything's on hold, but we're not going to hear anything now until January 6th. However, I still think that Pryor is going to file a motion for severance. So I'm keeping an eye on that. If he does, then we'll talk about it. But that could change all of those other dates. So everything is kind of up in the air. Expect things to change. But we won't be hearing from them on the 24th, which is kind of sad. I was looking forward to that. So now we just have to wait longer. Let me catch up with chat again. As far as I know, Lori has not been diagnosed with anything yet in prison. I don't even know if she's had evaluations or not. Let's see. Wasn't Joe supposed to have Tylee every weekend? There was a custody arrangement. He was supposed to have visitation with her, but Lori just kept putting it off and blocking him and all that stuff. Would she have known? I don't know at the point where he died what their custody arrangement was. So who knows at that point what it was, because Lori just kept messing it all up anyway. Joe dying made all of Lori's problems go away, maybe giving her some ideas. And that's true. Although Lori's problems with Joe were really of her own making. Joe seemed to want to be around Tylee and was giving her lots of money for child support. He didn't really seem to be causing her a lot of trouble. She just wanted him gone. So she's just mean. Lori claims to have not seen or heard from Joe for 2 years. Yeah, see that she does say that she didn't see or hear from Joe for 2 years, but that doesn't, the lawyer, Keith Taniguchi, calls that into question too in the interview. He's like, that doesn't seem, the dates don't really add up for him. So that's possibly just a lie. It's quite possible that everything Lori has said is just untrue, and we're going to have to sort through every single statement. which could take a couple of years. So imagine what Rob Wood's going through. Kimmy says, I can safely say that no bishop would have given Lori Daybell a temple recommend based on the conversation she stated. Okay, I would hope not. I would hope not. I would think if anybody goes up to a bishop and says, give me a temple recommend or I'm going to start murdering people, that they'd be like, how about you come over here and sit down with me while we call the police? Let's do that instead, okay? I'll give you a recommend to jail. Oh. Let's see. She would definitely know, but her purpose was to keep him away, so that would have gone unmentioned. That's true. That's true. She was working very hard to keep Joseph far away from Tylee and Colby. Not that he had, although he kind of, I don't think, no, this is a part where your brain starts to get a little mush. Joseph Ryan did not formally adopt Colby, but Colby did take the Ryan name, as far as I know. I have to go back through all the documents, but I believe that he didn't formally adopt Colby, but he was willing to raise him as his own, and Colby did take the last name of Ryan. I agree with Joe's lawyer that Lori is chemically imbalanced, but she is the crime boss in the story. Maya, absolutely. I've said many, many times, even since, when I first started covering this case, if Chad had never met Lori, I don't think Chad would have ever murdered anyone. I don't think that was Chad Daybell's gig. But I think when you put the two of them together, it kind of became his gig, and that's what happened to Tammy. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. Chelsea says, if you said give me a tech temple recommend or I'll commit murder, wouldn't the bishop be a mandatory reporter? Yes, he should be a mandatory reporter. I believe any clergy member is a mandated reporter. But if you listen to when Lori talks, she plays everything off as a joke. And how many of us have never said, oh, I'm going to kill him. Oh, he makes me so mad. I could just strangle that guy. You ever say that? Maybe she just played it off as that, sort of jokey, colloquial, yada, yada. And he didn't take it seriously. But I would bet that she never actually said that to a bishop. I think she was trying to be funny with this group of people. And her idea of funny is, not quite my idea of funny. Lori thinks murdering people is funny, or even joking about murdering people is hilarious. So, yep, that's Lori. When did I first hear about this case? It was almost a year ago. It was December of last year. A very good friend of mine, Denise Rainey, started messaging me saying, oh, have you heard about this case out of Idaho? I'm like, what case? A couple missing kids. I'm like, no, I hadn't heard about it. But we're always covering cases, and there's so much going on. And I didn't really think about it too much until maybe late January, it was about January, I think, of 2019. Yeah, it was before Lori was discovered in Hawaii and all that, where Denise had started covering the case. And you can find a link to her channel in the description below. She had started doing videos on it and was digging up all of this information. Denise had more information about this case than a lot of people still have to this day, because she started digging like nobody's business. She found out about Joseph. She found out about all of the other deaths. She found out about everything and kept coming to me with, you got to look at this case. This is amazing. And I'd be like, that's crazy. And she told me, oh, well, they were in some kind of cult and it was some extremist Mormon beliefs and da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, yeah, I'm not touching that case. It was too crazy, too big. I'd watch one of Denise's videos and talk to her about it and be like, how do you even keep that straight? You need a whiteboard the size of your bedroom wall with notes and strings and ropes to keep all of these people straight. I couldn't get my head around it. It was just too much. So I decided, you know what? I'm not going to say a word. Just let Denise do that case. I'll back her up and help her any she needs, but I'm not touching it, And Denise passed away in June of this year. And I couldn't let all of her hard work just stop. So I picked up the coverage of this case. That's how I ended up with it. But now I can't stop, because now it's like, we have to see this through to the end. I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it for Denise. I'm doing it for justice for JJ and Tylee and Charles and Joseph and Tammy. And possibly even Alex, possibly even Stacy, everyone who's been affected by these crazy people. So that's why I'm doing it. Let me check up on chat. Eamon, do you think they would have come out and said if everything was fine with Tammy's autopsy? I do think they would have, Stephanie. Tammy's autopsy is a big deal for me because let's remember it was last, I think, December 12th or 11th. December 11th, I think they exhumed Tammy. December 12th was when they found Alex dead. All right, so they exhumed Tammy's body on December 11th. And they did that after they had realized after Thanksgiving that JJ and Tylee were both missing. And there was all kinds of crazy stuff going on, right? The police started putting all of these little pieces together and said, you know what? We better look at Tammy Daybell's death again. So they exhumed Tammy's body. And within weeks, right, not even, I think 3 weeks after they exhumed her, they had enough information to convince a judge to give them a search warrant for Chad's home, right? So they had to have found something in the exhumation that made them say, we got to go search the home. And remember, they have to go to a judge and say, these are the items we're looking for. These are why we think they're important based on this evidence, right? So they did that. They got the search warrant for Chad's home. And then it was in April of this year that investigators came out and said that they were looking at Chad and Lori as persons of interest in the death of Tammy Daybell. They're looking at them for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and murder. So, yeah, they had to have found stuff in Tammy's autopsy. Absolutely. We're not going to hear about it till they're ready to bring charges. And I think that's part of the bigger picture that Rob Wood's working on right now. But yeah, Tammy's case is a big one. Love to Love Him says, I first heard about this case when they gave Lori the deadline. That's when I find out about Tylee and JJ. Yep, that was in January when they gave her a deadline to produce the children in court. She was actually in Hawaii. She was tracked down there largely by Nate Eaton. You know, he was the one who found her and chasing her around with a microphone trying to get her to say something. And then she got arrested in Hawaii. That was a big day. The big question, will Chad's children stand by him anyway? I don't know. Certainly some of his children seem to be. His daughter, Emma, she's not a very nice person. She makes a lot of very nasty posts and things. Her and her husband, Joe, they make a lot of nasty posts on Facebook and social media, and she's just rotten. You know, there's a video of a reporter giving a story from the driveway of their home, and Emma pulls up behind her, starts making all these, 5-year-old faces into the camera, sticking out her tongue and all this stuff. It's like, really? That is not how you were raised. Your mother would smack you, So yeah, some of Chad's children are, we don't know. But some of them seem a little bit sensible. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens. Oh, let's see. What's going on in chat? There's no excuse for killing her kids, even if she cries insanity. Absolutely. Yep. See, that's the thing. First, there is no insanity plea in Idaho, so we don't have to worry about that. Even if there was, though, and this is something that comes up in a lot of cases like this, if you want to plead insanity, you have to prove that you didn't know what you were doing was wrong. And the fact that they would hide evidence and hide the bodies and lie about it, that proves that they knew what they were doing was wrong. So right there, they wouldn't have grounds for an insanity defense. So not that they could file one anyway in Idaho. So that's good. Special Prosecutor Rob Wood. They certainly have a very qualified person on the job. I think so. I do think I have a lot of faith in Rob Wood. Hopefully that's not blind faith and not misplaced, but we'll see. Karen Gillette asked, didn't one of Lori's lawyers die too? That's hard to say. Yes, one of Lori's lawyers did pass away. He was one of the lawyers involved with the mess with Joseph or Charles, one of the custody cases. And Lori said to one of her therapists that his ghost visited her often and talked to her and was really in love with her or was married to her in a past life or something. Yeah, Lori said that herself. That's kind of cuckoo. The day after Tammy was exhumed out, yes, Beth, they exhumed Tammy, I believe, on December 11th. They found Alex dead the next day. So what does that look like to you? It could be said that Alex knew that they were exhuming Tammy and panicked so much and just killed himself because he knew he was busted. It could be. We don't know for sure. But it's very suspicious that Alex was found dead the day after they exhumed Tammy's body. Mm-hmm. Oh, Jenny McGee, please look after yourself. Uh-oh. Jenny, I hope you're okay. Please stay safe and take care of yourself. It's really important right now, especially with what's going on with this plague, that we all take extra special care of ourselves and stay safe and healthy. Yes, the day after the exhumation. Mm-hmm. If anyone can justify murder through the perception of Scripture, isn't it against the very same thought lines to lie and think that's okay too? Of course it is. But there's no logic here. We're not going to find logic in this. You will drive yourself crazy if you try to find logic in anything regarding this case. So, do you think they got the autopsy wrong on Alex saying it was a heart attack? I do. Maggie, yes, I do. But then again, a heart attack is one thing. What caused the heart attack is really the question, because many, many things can cause a heart attack. So just saying it was a heart attack, that may not be wrong, but it certainly isn't the whole picture. That's what I think about that. The day Melanie Gibb went to law enforcement with her recording was the day Alex starts complaining of shortness of breath. Interesting. Pulmonary embolism. Yep, that's what they said it was. And certainly when you have 6 people, or certainly a lot of people around you that die of the exact same thing, it's kind of like, we got to look at this. Yeah, unfortunately, law enforcement, because it was different states and different jurisdictions, they didn't get the big picture till far too late. That's probably a thing. We're not talking about the Malachite. We had a whole thing about Malachite. I am not one of the people who believes they used Malachite to poison them. I think that's kind of preposterous, honestly. So we don't do Malachite here. Her argument was that she killed Joe because she called her crazy and he was protecting her. Then she kills her daughter. Yeah. The reality of autopsy is that most humans die of a heart attack. Exactly. Most humans die of a heart attack. It's what caused it. That's what we need answered. What caused the heart attack? So that's something we may never be able to find out. Remember, Alex and I believe Joseph too, they were both cremated. They do have deep tissue samples, but that's not going to tell us the whole story, unfortunately. Yeah, too many people around Lori die of heart problems. Mm-hmm. Insulin would be my first guess. So I agree with you. The O'Brien's Crazy Farm. I do agree. Crimea River says, I totally respect this channel. Thanks so much. Why do they not come out with Tammy's autopsy? Okay. In order for them to bring murder charges, they have to be able to prove them and secure a conviction, right? If they bring murder charges and go to trial, but they don't have their case completely ready yet, they can never try them for murder again. They get one chance at that, right? So it's really important that Rob would take all the time he needs to cross his T's and dot his I's to get those charges absolutely airtight. Now, it's not simple. Certainly in the case of the children, it's not even going to be simple to bring murder charges for JJ and Tylee, because you have to prove A, who killed them, when they were killed, where they were killed, how they were killed, why they were killed. Maybe not the why so much, but it's still a thing. That's a lot of stuff, especially considering that one person we suspect did part of the killing, or some or all of it, is also dead. So they have to go through all kinds of electronic data to see if they can find anything, any sort of data showing, movement, or like cameras from gas stations and highways and this and that to show who moved where, when, who was doing what, when. And certainly in this case, they can't really trust what people are telling them. Look at Melanie Gibb, right? Melanie Gibb, I love to harp on Melanie Gibb. Melanie Gibb, who probably knows everything, has lied to law enforcement time and time again. And then she lies about lying, So they can't trust anything Melanie Gibb says to them either. So even the people close to them, or close to Lori and Chad, that could clear up these questions. Law enforcement just can't take what they say at face value. So every tiny thing has to be totally investigated and looked. And it's a big deal because we're not just talking JJ and Tylee. We're talking Tammy, Charles, Alex, Joseph. It's a big mess. So I don't expect to see murder charges anytime soon. I really don't. I do think we'll see them. But for now, I'm happy to know that they're in jail. They cannot make bond. Well, they don't have the money to make bond. So they're stuck there. Even if this trial happens in July and they're both convicted, they're still in jail for 5 or so years. That gives Rob Wood plenty of time to get these charges airtight and ready to go. So the hard part is we want to see murder charges today. We wanted to see them 6 months ago, but we're going to have to wait. And I know that's tough, but let the wheels of justice are turning, and we just have to be patient. Melanie Pawlowski knows everything too. Love to love him. I agree. Melanie Pawlowski was very, very close to Lori. Remember, Melanie Pawlowski walked out on her husband and children so she could move next door to Lori when she moved to Rexburg. She just up and left her kids. That's how close she was to Lori. So I don't think for a second that Melanie Pawlowski does not know what's going on either. But none of these people are telling law enforcement the truth. And that's got to muddy the water for an investigation, because they can send you on all kinds of wild goose chases. They can drop all kinds of red herrings. You waste all of your time and resources investigating this nonsense that they're cooking up, only to find out a year later that you've been totally going the wrong direction because these people are all lying. It's a nightmare. I would not want to be investigating this case. These people would drive me bananas. Oh, I don't trust Pawlowski. Yep, I don't either, Janet. I totally agree with you on that. Oh. Yeah, they have to gather all the evidence. Now, that they do have the forensic reports back on the children. They're not going to release that publicly. Certainly not. Child autopsies are generally not released completely to the public. They may bring some charges as a result of what was in the forensic reports. They may just be holding everything back to drop a pile of charges all at once. Don't think for a second that Rob Wood is just going to let it go. Right? They're not going to just get him on conspiracy and be like, okay, we're done. They're not going to do that. They're not. No, that's not going to happen. But it is going to take a long time before they get to the charges. Does anyone else think that Alex could have ended his own life? I do think so. Judy, I think that's a distinct possibility, that Alex, once he got wind of the exhumation of Tammy, maybe he was involved in that and all of this stuff, and maybe he was just overcome about what had been done to what he possibly had done to the children, and he just took his own life. It's quite possible. So, you think they're innocent. Cowgirl, you think who's innocent? And hi, by the way, it's good to see you. They're going to get Melanie P. That's why she wasn't at the prelim. Melanie P. Oh, you're talking about Chad. You thought Chad and Lori were innocent. Okay. All right. Cowgirl Up just wants to see my head explode because it's fun. As far as Melanie P. goes, she was named in a formal document that was filed in the custody hearing between Melanie and Brandon, where one of the detectives states that Melanie Pawlowski is a person of interest in the shooting attempt on Brandon, as well as the disappearance and death of JJ and Tylee. He said that. The officer said that in the court filing. So Melanie Pawlowski is in some hot water. It would be in her best interest to sit in a corner somewhere and be quiet, So hopefully that's why she's being quiet. Maybe she can do Melanie Gibbs' trick and go pray in the closet for 6 months. Maybe that would help her. You never know. Maybe Jesus would come to her and tell her, go tell the truth. And then she could blow the whole case wide open and we'd have all our answers. That would be cool. So we shall see. Also, we do have another hearing, I believe, later this month for Melanie and Brandon's custody battle. Now, normally, I wouldn't bring in a custody fight into a public discussion like this because it's about the children. However, this custody battle really doesn't seem to be a lot about the children. Brandon is throwing everything he can at the wall. He's bringing up everything. There's a lot of witnesses. a lot of evidence, a lot of statements that have been proffered in that case that I think could materially impact the trial of Chad and Lori. So I am paying very close attention to their custody battle, and the next time there's a hearing, I will cover it for sure. It's not being broadcast, so I won't be able to bring it live. But once we find out what happened, I will definitely bring it to you. Cowgirl Up, thank you so much. Should I know it would make you giggle? It really did. And I appreciate that. Today has been a really rough day for me. A lot of people have asked, I'll tell a short version of the story. I had a cousin who was one of the most impactful people in my life growing up. He was my mentor. He was my best friend. I worked with him for many years growing up. Our family had a horse boarding stable farm, and I worked with him. He was a farrier. So I went with him every summer shoeing horses. I was his apprentice. He was just super important to me. But we had lost touch for many years. And it was only recently I'd gotten back in touch with him and found a lot of problems. He was in a very abusive relationship. He had had a traumatic brain injury after a terrible car accident and was just not mentally there anymore. He really wasn't. Their home was like one of those houses you see on Hoarders. It was really that bad, like with chickens running around the kitchen and stuff. I mean, horrible, absolutely horrible conditions. So I had been working with him for months now from Texas to try and help him. I mean, there's not much you can do from 2,000 miles away, but at least I was there to talk to him every day and support him and let him know I cared and all of this stuff. And just recently, his birthday was November 5th. He had called me and asked me if for his birthday, if I would buy him a really good telescope, because he loved that I'm studying astrophysics and he loved to study the universe and he wanted a telescope so bad. So I told him if he got his living room cleaned up, I would buy him a nice telescope. It's just a really long story with my relationship with him. But I got a call today from the state police in Connecticut. He was found dead in his home this morning. And they're not sure of the cause of death, although it doesn't look like a traumatic injury. This is most likely some medical thing. So they're currently, investigating at the medical examiner's office. But I was listed as his only next of kin because nobody else in the family would take responsibility for him. So here I am in Texas. My entire family is in Connecticut, and none of them want to even touch this. And I'm like, how do you expect me to deal with this? So it's hard because I'm angry with my family. I'm like, come on, he may have been, had some mental problems and this and that, but he's still family, so I'm not sure what to do. I have given authorization to the medical examiner to send his body for cremation, and they will send me his ashes, but I have to deal with his apartment. His apartment is full floor to ceiling of crap. So I've got to deal with his landlord. I've got to deal with all of these things because nobody else will. And that's kind of heartbreaking, but it's life. But I got that call about 2 hours before the live stream and I'm like, this is some bad timing, really bad. So that's why I'm not on camera, because I messed up all my makeup. I didn't want to do it again. So yeah. It's just, Robbie, I don't know if I need help because I'm really not sure what to do. I'm waiting for a bunch of phone calls. I had called Adult Protective Services in Connecticut to try and get him help. He did have a social worker that, I had at least got that part done, but she hadn't even ever gone to the house to see him. She just called him once or twice. Like, that's not what he needs. I told her she needed to go there. I told her he was in a dangerous environment, blah, blah, blah. But they did nothing. And now he's dead. And I'm like, okay, what do I do with this situation? I don't know. I don't know what to do. So my sister works as a guardian ad litem in New York State. So I'm hoping she'll have some tips for me about where to start. Because part of me wants to just like walk away now and be like, okay, there's nothing more I can do. But it's hard to. I was the only person in the world that cared about him. And he was such an important part of my life. I can't just, of course, he's dead. I have to remember that. He is not here anymore. So it's not like Jess said, you're not throwing him to the side of the road. He's not here anymore. So I will get his ashes. I've got that part sorted. He does have a few family heirloom type things that I would love to get back. The chances of that happening are slim to none, because I can't go to Connecticut. Even if I flew to Connecticut right now, there's nothing I could do because I'd be quarantined for 2 weeks, so there's nothing I can do. I just have to sit here and like, okay, life goes on. So that's rough. No, this is not Mike. Mike was my ex, father of my son. This I'm talking about my cousin, my crazy cousin Jim. So yeah, it was a rough day, rough situation. But especially with COVID, that certainly makes everything more difficult to deal with because I can't travel. I would not get on a plane right now, even if I could, because of the plague. Plane is a good way to catch it, but I don't want to drive across the country. And even if I do drive to Connecticut, I still have to quarantine for 2 weeks before I can go out and about and do stuff. And oh goodness, But I do feel bad for his landlord because they've got to clean that up somehow. That's not going to be fun. But at the same time, I don't know what's in his hoard. I don't know if there's anything of value. I don't know what they're going to find. I don't know if he'll even take the time to look for the few things that I would really love to have. So it's just a mess. But I did talk to the landlord. His landlord is really, really nice. He's been very supportive of Jimmy for the last couple of months with some of the things he's gone through. So I think it'll work out. I'm not legally responsible for the mess or the hoard or his apartment or anything like that. So it'll be fine. But yeah, if it was Mike, I would have just thrown Mike on the side of the road. Yeah, I wouldn't be upset about that at all. The pandemic has changed the world. It absolutely has. So, oh, Jenny, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to hear that. Something very special about a farrier, isn't there? There really is. And certainly Cowgirl Up knows what we're talking about. But yeah, so he gave me my love for horses, taught me how to shoe a horse like nobody's business. And he was very influential in shaping me to be the person I am. So to see him go through the mental decline as a result of his brain injury, that was hard. But to know that he ended his life in that situation, that's really hard. But there was nothing I could do to fix it. So I suppose, yes, I am dealing with a little bit of guilt. Maybe I should have just flown up there months ago. But the reason I didn't was because of COVID. So, goodness gracious. Goodness gracious. But this is life. This is how we deal with being a grown-up, I suppose. Mm-hmm. Yep, the forearms, definitely. Mm-hmm. But so that's all the news that I have about the Lori Vallow case right now. We'll drop another link in chat to anyone who's just joined. If you want to watch the full interview that Justin Lum did with Keith Taniguchi, who was Joseph Ryan's lawyer during the custody battle with Lori. It's a really interesting interview. It's worth the time to watch. Take some notes because I think he gets a few things wrong in there. But it's a good interview. Also, remember, you can check out the audio file of Lori. It's in our Discord. Annie Cushing's got it. It's in True Crime Underground. And also the main thing about Joseph Ryan's investigation. Let's remember, let's go forward. In fact, okay, there are no persons of interest named in that case. Law enforcement has only said they're going to review the case. They have not reopened the investigation. They have not named any persons of interest. So let's keep to facts on that. There may come a day where they do name persons of interest. But as of this moment, Sergeant Mercedes Fortune has confirmed that there are no persons of interest in that case. Whatever news person ran with that headline, they got it wrong, unfortunately. Because remember, person of interest is a legal distinction. It's not just a colloquialism. Okay, so let's make sure that we get it straight so that when everything comes out, we'll know exactly where we stand. And hopefully we're going to get some justice for Joseph and Tammy and Charles and Tylee and JJ and possibly even good old Alex. And I say that with a strange face. What happened with Paul? Wasn't he going to be there? Nothing happened with Paul. Paul isn't always on with me. He is sometimes he isn't. He's been working a lot and I just haven't gotten in touch with him. So yeah, he's not always here with me. But I'm sure Paul is just fine. And Paul, if you're out there, hi, give me a call. But yeah, Paul's fine. But thank you all for the well wishes and the condolences. It's all going to be fine. Everything's fine. So, yeah, I appreciate you all so much. Now, Sunday begins a new series for channel members and Patreons. We're starting the Conscious Manifestation series. So it's going to be Sunday evening, and it's going to be, I think, six or 8 weeks long. So that starts Sunday, so stay tuned. If you're not a channel member, you can join by clicking the join button below, or you can also find it on Patreon. Either one, it's all up to you. They're all about the same anyway. So whatever works best for you. But that's going to be Sunday. So I'm really excited for that. And Sunday is going to be our introduction night. We're going to explain a lot of basics about it. So if you're interested in conscious manifestation, or if you ever read the book, The Secret, this is a more logical, practical approach to something like that. So it's really interesting. One of my favorite things to talk about. And we'll be doing that Sunday. So I will see you all then. And certainly any more news in the Vallow case, I will bring it to you as soon as it happens. So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate the support, especially on days like today. I needed a live chat with y'all because it makes me feel better. So thank you. I love you all. Take care and stay safe out there. And I will talk to you soon.